Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Professional Nomad Podcast. I am your humble host, Stefano, and I am glad that if you are able to join me tonight. But before we get started, as always, please make sure that you hit that like button. Also, make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that you are subscribed and that you hit that notification bell. Therefore, when we go live, you will be notified. All you have to do is look in the top right-hand corner. You get your notification at that bell mark up top, and you just wait till we go live and join. Or if you're watching this on the replay, hit that like button. It means a lot. Helps put us in front of a broader audience. Also, leave a comment. I'd like to know what kind of content you would like to see. If this is not the type of content that you like coming from this podcast, let me know. Leave a comment. We're just trying to put out the best content that we can. And being that we do this for the people, we want to know the opinions of the people. So I say all that to say, leave a comment. Let me know if you like the comment, the content, or if you don't like the content. Either way, I greatly appreciate it. You got to watching the 49ers win again. I am happy about that. So I had to reschedule my live stream to after the game went off. So I'm a little excited. I'm hoping that we make it to the Super Bowl. I'm hoping that we get our rematch against the Ravens. I know there's a lot of you Ravens fans out there, so I'm looking forward to seeing y'all. Unless you guys get beat before you get there. Kansas City and Buffalo got to play tomorrow, so I hope one of y'all know what y'all doing, and I hope one of these two teams knock y'all off, really, to tell you the truth. I don't care if you make it to the Super Bowl again or not. But if you ask me, I think it's going to be San Fran and Buffalo. I don't think the Ravens can beat Buffalo, and Kansas City ain't doing good this year. So Buffalo will knock off Kansas City and advance to the AFC Championship game to play the Ravens, and they're going to knock off the Ravens too. So that's just my opinion. What up, Jeremiah? What's going on? Appreciate you tuning in, brother. I don't know if you're watching the game or not, but 49ers won. Bang, bang, Niner gang, baby. You know what I'm saying? Tonight's topic, we're going to be reacting to an interview that Michelle Obama did with, man, you crazy, Jeremiah. Let me tell you something. Buffalo's going to come in there. It's not going to be 49ers versus the Chiefs, man. They can't even catch the ball. Do you think they're going to, okay, let's say hypothetically speaking, if they go into Baltimore, right? Let's say they go into Baltimore and the way Baltimore's defense is playing, do you really think that those shaky receivers that the Chiefs got this year is going to actually perform in Baltimore under all that pressure? You see how they folded up us, the 49ers. How is, man, how are the Chiefs going to do it? And they, man, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, bro. It's not going to work. I think it's going to be Buffalo and San Fran. I think that Buffalo has, I think they're going to have the Ravens number. And I know definitely they're going to have the Chiefs number. So that's who's going to be in the Super Bowl. That's just my opinion. I mean, don't quote me on that, but that's just what I think. Um, like I was saying, she did an interview with Jay Shetty, and she talked about her years in the White House. Michelle Obama talked about what she learned, how she grew, in her relationship. She touched on a number of things that I think is important in today's time, especially for women, because women like to be involved in a lot of things that have to do with a man's business. And she touched on some of the things where she had to just say, I don't want to know this. I don't need to know this, and that's very important to learn, because if a lot of women thought like that, we probably would have a lot of less problems. So many people are so controlling nowadays, both men and women. We can't just put that on women, but men and women are controlling. I think everyone could take and learn a lesson from this one little simple interview. And the interview is only about an hour long, but we're going to be stopping in here and there, just adding commentary to it, reacting to it, just to see, my opinion on it. Because, like I said, I always think that my opinion is going to be better. But without further ado, shout out to MTR. Let's share the screen and get to it.
Straight in. What is the best part about being you?
I have never thought about that. That is a great question. I think my family, my friendships, I think one of the things that Barack and we always talk about is that we're proud of the fact that we've kept our community. People that we've known all our lives are still a part of that community that keeps us solid and keeps us whole and grounded. It's easy to lose your head on this journey that we've been on. And I think what keeps us focused is that we have some solid people in our lives, and we make it a point to cultivate those relationships and to learn to be intentional about them. And I think that that's probably one of the coolest things, is that, I've got this big kitchen table of people who keep me focused and keep me honest.
What's the longest friendship?
Hold on. Well, let's talk about it. Because she said something very important right there, right? Very important. Yeah, I like Jay Shetty. Mental health is important, Jeremiah. You're right. It's I watched this interview like 3 or 4 times this week, and I sent it to a lot of people because I just happened to stumble upon it, and I was like, wow, like she's just talking, she's just saying a lot, that's the best way I can put it. So I felt it was the only way right that we reviewed it, right? So appreciate that, Jeremiah. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure when you do, you go in there and you hit like all the videos. Like all the videos. Yes, we're a new channel and we're up and coming, and we might not be the best, but we're only going to get better and better. So make sure you get on board early. So therefore, when you do, you can go ahead and learn what we got going on, because we're on a lot of social media networks. And I got a lot of videos that I got to chop up and start posting stuff. I got a bunch of them. So you're going to start being bombarded with a lot of my content on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. I mean, we're live right now on Twitch. We're live right now on Facebook, and we're live right now on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed so you can stay ahead of the game on this and always know what's going on. Also, in my community tab, I always post little updates. Like right now, we're at 89 subscribers. I never thought we'd make it that far, that fast. I mean, to most people, that's not a lot. To me, it is. So we're trying to hit 100. So if everybody can go ahead and hit that subscribe button and help the channel hit 100 subscribers, I'd greatly appreciate it. It'll be a milestone for me because I'm new at YouTube and I'm trying to do my best to push this great content into people and into the future. Gracias. Surround yourself with great people. Build a circle of people you could trust, a circle of people who's going to not be just yes men. Too many people have people around them that are just yes men. You can't have them. How are you ever going to learn? How are you ever going to know when you're making mistakes if everyone around you is like, yeah. That's not how life works. We make mistakes. We mess up. And we need people around us that's going to let us know when we mess up. We also need to have people around us that we can go to for advice. It's very important that we do these things because, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of us live this nomadic lifestyle where we handle our business on our own, we do everything on our own, and that's cool. But sometimes you need to be able to pick up that phone and call somebody, right? Talk to them. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? How does this sound to you? I do it all the time. I don't got no shame in my game because I understand how the world works and I know that we need people. And if you're going to be out here in the world, then you're going to need a circle of people that you can trust and you can count on. Let's get back to it.
They're non-family. Like, what's the in years would you say?
The longest friendship? I mean, gosh, childhood friendships I still have.
Wow.
I've sort of picked up friends throughout every part of my life. You know, I've got one or two. I've got the high school friends that I keep in touch with, the college friends, the law school friends, you know, so you sort of gather people throughout. And I've had a lot of people who've sort of just hung in there before we were the Obamas.
Yeah. How does that work? I feel like so many people who are on their journey, a lot of us don't take steps forward because we're scared of what our friends will think. Some of us get carried away with success and ego and pride goes to your head and then you alienate people. Sometimes it's envy and jealousy from everyone else who didn't join you on the journey. How do you navigate a multi-decade level friendship when everyone is going through so much? What are the kind of key milestones and maintaining that kitchen table?
You know, I talk about this journey like climbing Mount Everest. You start, not that I've ever done that, by the way, but what I've heard about climbing Mount Everest is that you start out at base camp and then you hit these summits along the way. And everybody starts out the journey ready. You know, they think I'm going to make it to the top. And then you start the climb and some people are ready for it and some people aren't. And it's surprising that you learn along the climb who's really ready. And there are people who just emotionally, physically can't go the whole way. They run out of oxygen, you know?
Oh man, that is such a good point right there. Jesus Christ. Because everyone is not built for this. Basically, if you want to use today's terms, everyone is not built for this. They're just not built for this. A lot of people think they are, but they're really not built for this. Everyone should be able to do anything they put their minds to. But are you really, truly ready to dedicate yourself to the mission, to the cause, to go the whole mile? And it just depends on the type of person you are. If you're a type of person that gives up after a couple of defeats, then no. No. Like she said, everyone starts out, and they're gonna use this analogy a lot, this Mount Everest analogy, because he's gonna use it too. But in the beginning, it sounds good. I mean, it's just like me. In the beginning, I wanted to change my life. I got tired of ripping and running the streets, and I wanted to do something different. I got custody of my daughter and became a single parent. I wanted to change my life. I got my GED. I didn't graduate high school, so I got my GED. Then I said, okay, well, I need to be an example. So what did I do? I went to school. First, I went to school for something I loved, but I wasn't thinking future terms. I started out with a lot of people, and a lot of people didn't finish that journey. I did a couple of times, because once I went to school one time and seen that what I went to school for wasn't going to make me any money, I said, well, okay, well, I got to go back to the drawing board. I can't sit here forever and sulk, because this ain't paying the bills. This ain't making me no money. This ain't taking care of my kids. So what I ended up having to do was go back to school. And I went back to school to something that had a future. And if you ask me, there are certain things that last forever and they're going to be around forever. Certain lines of businesses, if you understand what I'm saying. And my line of business that I chose to take up was in the family trade, and that was healthcare. And that's why I got these two right here on the wall. The first one I got over here, this is the first thing I went to school for, music production. But then I went back as a dual major, and I'm just a little dude that was just running streets. I ended up double majoring, grabbing a certification, a lifetime certification, and a degree. So I was prepared and I was dedicated. I had motivation. I had reasons why I had to succeed. I had people watching me. And I am not talking about friends. I'm talking about my kids. So everything I do, even though my kids are grown, I still do it to show them that there is a way. There's a better way to do things. Even with this YouTube channel, I'm still laying a foundation for them so they can see, okay, well, if my dad can do it, guess what? So can I. Let me try to figure out how to do this. But it's great. So let's get back to it.
They weren't fit for the climb, right? And one of the hardest things is like when you discover that, I mean, do you stop? Do you go back because there was one member that wasn't ready? Or do you keep climbing and sort of leave them where they are? And we found that that's kind of been the pattern, right?
Wow.
There are people who have been, they were built for the climb like we were, and some weren't. And I find that I talk to young people about this too, because when you're a kid coming from nothing, and I won't say that I came from nothing, but Barack nor I came from wealth or connection or fame or fortune. So we have a hodgepodge of people in our lives. And one of the toughest things is to find out that a dear friend wasn't ready for the climb. And in order to keep pressing forward, we tell young people that sometimes you got to leave them there because you can't carry people when you're trying to get to the top. It slows you down. But there's, survivor's remorse that comes with it. And I know a lot of times when I talk to kids and I see them well up, I see in them that struggle. That they've reached a point where they've left people they love behind and they struggle to figure out how to whether or how to maintain those connections, and it becomes hard and it's draining. You know, kids, for example, who got the opportunity to go to college when half their family isn't eating.
Yes.
Right. And they've got a student loan and they need to use that loan to pay for their books, but they're trying to send money back home to pay the electric bill. And I tell those kids, like, if you want to make it, you've got to make some hard choices about what to do with your life, or you will not make the climb yourself.
And then everyone loses.
And then everybody loses.
And then everybody loses. Everybody loses. Let me tell you, survivor's remorse is a real thing. It is a real thing. I got so many friends, and these are my dogs. I'm talking about my dogs. Some of them might be watching the video now. They might be watching my YouTube videos now. These are like my brothers that I've had to leave behind. Because I changed my life around and switched everything around and started doing other things. And I didn't have to disassociate myself with them. But because of the direction that I chose to go in, it's a whole different direction than the one that they were going in. They were going this way and I'm going that way. But we're still here. But when you change directions on a group of people that you ran the streets with, or that you grew up with, or that you ended up hanging out with, and y'all became best buddies, and all of a sudden things happen and life happens, and you just happen to make a decision for yourself that's going to better your future, and it ends up working out for you, you do have survivor's remorse, because you think, well, if I could do it, why come my people can't do it? Why come my friends can't do it? And you start trying to go back and help them. Hey, look, how about you do this? I got friends that got business minds, but they just don't want to apply it because they want to be their own bosses. And that's cool, but everyone has a boss. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, whatever you do for a living as an entrepreneur, that's your boss. If you got a janitorial service, your buildings, your contracts, those people whose buildings you clean, those are your bosses. YouTube, if you're a YouTube content creator with millions of followers, YouTube is your boss. You're pretty much always going to work for somebody. Always. Always. So sometimes you have to think, what's going to be better for me? And that doesn't mean that you're going to forget about your people, because you can still think about your people and remember all the good times y'all had together, even hit them up every now and then. Hey, yo, what's up? What y'all doing this weekend? You got anything going on? Let's meet up. It's been a minute. Blah, blah, blah. But sometimes you just got to do what's best for you and yours. And I think that a lot of people forget about that, simply because they don't want to feel the guilt and shame, because you feel it. People, I don't care. You can be the hardest person in the world. You can be the most gangsterous dude in the world. And something happened to all your friends, you feel it and you regret it. It's just how life is. Nobody's a robot. And I hate to hear people act like they don't have emotions, because you got emotions. God made you the same way he made me. Let's get back to the video.
And I think that's how we've had to look at it. We've been fortunate enough that we've had so many people who were ready for the climb. They had to adjust. They had to go back and do a little working out. But for the most part, they've made it. But for the people who couldn't, we had to leave them behind and keep climbing. And if once we made it to the top, if we could reach back and pull some others up, we definitely did that. It is one of the greatest challenges when you are pursuing a life that is drastically different from the one that you come from.
Is there such a thing as a graceful end?
Well, it depends on who's doing the ending, right?
Yes.
Sometimes I say there's such a thing as the slow ghost, where you just sort of let relationships take their natural course. Friendships and relationships kind of tell you when they're ready.
Yeah, that's so true.
And you have to kind of listen to it. You learn as you get older.
Yeah.
Sometimes you held on too long. You let some, bad juju stay around too long. And as you get older, you can recognize, right? I've always approached life and friendships, and I try to tell my daughters this too, is stay open. Stay open to the possibility of people. I never want my daughters, and I never wanted to feel so high that I was closed off and suspicious, not wanting to let new people in, right? And that becomes very difficult when you're the president and the first lady. You could, close your life off so much, right? Because everyone might want something from you. But I always felt like, well, that's a loss. Because if you close everybody out, then you miss some gems. We've tried to be open and find ways to let new people in our lives and develop new relationships. And what I tell my kids is trust your gut, because you'll know when people should be let out. But keep your aperture wide open. Let people in, but when they show you who they are, let them out quickly.
When they show you who they are, believe them. Now, yeah, it is. It's okay to fall back and build in silence. It really is. One of the beautiful things she just said that I liked is don't close yourself off, because you just might be blocking your blessing. And there's no worse thing than a person who's a blessing blocker. It's just straight up truth, right? Don't block your blessings. Be open to the possibility of anything happening for you. I, like a lot of other people of color, right, used to always be, well, you're always on the black folk. It can't always be because I'm a certain color. Maybe I'm not applying myself enough. Maybe that's it. We can't always blame it on race. Well, how about you leave the country and go somewhere else and rebuild and start a new life, and then see how far you can get? There's lots of people that do it and they're succeeding with it. I could point them out, right? But closing yourself off, it doesn't help anything. You never know who you will meet, who you will run across that can help you. You never know who might be the person to open that door for you to make it to the next level, because we were not put here on this planet by the Lord to do things by ourselves. Now, I tell this to a lot of people. I tell this to men and women. We were not put here to be by ourselves. So everybody that claims they don't need a man, they don't need a woman, you got to stop that, bro. You got to stop it, sis. You got to stop. That ain't the truth. It's just not true. We weren't put here to be by ourselves. And you weren't put here to do things by yourself. You need a network. Now, you can handle your business, but it's something Kevin Samuels used to say, right? Bring value to a network as well. So that means you need to work on yourself. before you can be a part of a bigger network as well. One of his main things was have LinkedIn visibility. I got a LinkedIn page that shows you what I do, my job title. I got all this, education, everything. Do you have LinkedIn visibility? I do. I listen to that man a lot. Whole lot of things that man said gave me a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, got me a promotion. Sometimes you have to work on yourself so you can increase your value as a person, as a man, as a woman, whatever gender you claim, right? So you can improve. Therefore, when it's time for you to come across that person that's going to open that door for you, they can see you and recognize your value and say, hey, I see everything you're doing. While the other people might not notice it, but I do. How about you do X, Y, and Z? And when you do, this will happen for you. But if you're a closed off, closed-minded individual, you just have tunnel vision. You don't think about anybody but yourself, and that never really succeeds in life. You can only make it so far. And by only getting so far in life, I mean, that's everybody doesn't have to be the big dog, the head of the table. Everybody might not want to be that. And that's cool. But for those that do, you have to always stay open to the possibility of something happening for you that's going to change your life for the better. Always. Even if it ain't the people that's around you, the people you're around, you always have to think something's going to shake, something's going to happen. And if you keep your mind like that, you put that out there to the universe will spit it back to you every single time. Please subscribe to my Instagram page. Like I said, I got a lot of videos I got to chop up. I took a break around the beginning of the year because work is very busy right now. We're coming to the end of our busy season, and once we do, I'll be able to get in the lab and go ahead and edit more of these videos that I've done previously. And I'm going to start posting them all everywhere. So please make sure that you are subscribed to all of the pages on TikTok, on Twitch, on Rumble, everywhere. We're on all platforms. Gracias. But let's hear more of what she has to say.
And as the older you get, you know, it's like, yeah, this one isn't working out. So let's just cut it quick, but stay open.
And you're naturally going to make mistakes. You're naturally going to get hurt.
Absolutely.
You're naturally not going to read everyone perfectly.
So true.
That's
so true.
That's going to happen, but it's better to be aware, note down the lesson, but be open in the first place, because being closed is worse.
You miss out on the goodness, the possibility, the opportunity, the new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I never want to miss out on the new. I'd rather give people the benefit of the doubt, bring them in and let them disappoint me. It's like, I can deal with disappointment. I can get over hurt, but I don't want to lose the possibility of someone special coming in.
Wow.
That's the greater trade-off.
That's
right?
so powerful.
And it's proven to be the right approach. You know, we've just met some wonderful people along this journey. And gosh, if I had closed myself off to that, I think of the friendships, the influences that I wouldn't have had. So I want my girls to stay open.
Yeah.
You know, I want them to be open people.
Yes. I had a mentor in London probably around 10 years ago, and he devised this set of questions that gives you your personality type. And there's so many tests like this.
Yes.
But his was really interesting, and it's very aligned with your thinking. So, and he also had types where we'd get locked, and he'd call this CSC. He said the more closed, the more specific, and the more controlling you get, the less you're able to actually connect, grow, evolve, learn. And he would always say, as you're saying, the more open, random, and supportive you are,
Yeah.
the more likely you are to be able to invite people into your life.
Now, what he said too was very, very important. And I hope people are listening to this. If you're listening to this on a replay, or if you're watching this now, I hope you caught what he just said. And I'm gonna give you a prime example of what he just said of a closed-minded. When you're closed-minded and you don't think of anything else, and you just stay in this one little space all the time, you never grow. You ever bought a goldfish? You ever seen a goldfish, right? Not in the stores in the aquarium, right? But a goldfish in its natural habitat. A goldfish grows to be huge. It grows to be a humongous fish if left in its natural habitat, along with a lot of other animals too, right? They grow to be huge. But what happens when you take a goldfish and you put them in a little small jar and put them on the shelf? Yeah, they look cute. You can feed them. You keep them for so long and they die. You flush them down the toilet, right? But they never get big. They stay small. They never get as big as they would if you put them in their natural habitat. So that's saying something. So that same analogy can be applied to a human. So if we take and put it on this side and apply it to humans, how can you ever grow if you stay closed off and secluded in one little small space all the time and you never attempt to do anything? You won't. You'll stay in this small little bubble, secluded like the goldfish, and you'll never grow. And pretty soon, someone will start feeding you because the world is changing. Right now, over on Learn Crypto TV, make sure you go subscribe to Learn Crypto TV. They're over there discussing it right now about the financial portions of it. Everything is changing rapidly in front of everybody's eyes, and no one is really paying attention to it because they're too busy on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok scrolling and just watching videos all day long. And they're going to touch on the problem that people have with their devices in a minute. But you need to be trying to figure out what's going on in the world. Okay? Let's get back to this video.
Different times. And I love hearing that because
I like that.
it was that
Mhm.
change from closed
Mhm.
closed, selective, and controlling to open, random, and supportive. He was saying you never know. You could have a random interaction with someone. It could be the most beautiful lesson of your life. And
I also felt that, when you're the president of the United States and the first lady, you have to be open.
Mhm.
You have to be open to all the possibilities. You can't live in your fortress and govern the people, right?
Mhm.
And I think we benefited from the fact that we had to figure out how to be regular people
Mhm.
in the White House because we had kids in school. And so we couldn't become just White House people. We had to get to know that community and go to parent-teacher conference and make friends with other parents because we wanted our kids' lives to be normal. But that, in a way, kept me connected with people and what they were really feeling and what their challenges were. And it keeps me open and empathetic to people because I'm engaged and I'm not sitting in my castle
Mhm.
looking out at everybody else.
Absolutely.
So I found it particularly necessary in our
Absolutely.
role.
Yeah. So that's the best thing. That's beautiful. What has been the worst or the hardest part about being you?
Well, I think it's the flip side of that coin of that. When you're on the top of Mount Everest, it can be isolating and dystopic in a way. I think one of the greatest things that we've learned to appreciate in this role. And I tell young people this, especially young people who think they want fame. It's like, do you know what that is? Are you grasping for something you have no idea, or your parents pushing you towards this thing? Is that when you become famous, well known, you lose your anonymity. That's a tough thing to lose.
It's a price,
right?
It's a cost, yeah.
It's a huge price, right? The natural everyday thing of sitting and being able to sit in the world and observe it and not be observed, right? I mean,
wow, that's a really interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, just sort of sitting in a park and watching the world happen with nobody pulling you out of it, right? The simple walk through a park or standing in line at the grocery store and overhearing life. We don't have that. We don't have spontaneity in the same way. And that's a hard thing to lose. Now, here's the thing. Fortunately, we lost it. We lost it in our 40s. I just think of kids who are reaching for it, not knowing that you're about to lose a really valuable thing. You're striving to lose it, and you're only 18, 20. You don't want to lose your anonymity. You don't want to trade that off for anything in the world, because once you lose it, you lose a lot more. We've adjusted, right? Because we're adults. So yes, I can figure out how to make one move, go on a walk, visit a friend, but I have to call like 12 people, and I have to think about the movements, and security has to be lined up. We can't do the ordinary thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, she said a mouthful right there. So it's a lot to unpack. So let's try to unpack it. The first thing, remain humble. Always remain humble. Always remain humble. Okay? So she talked about not sitting in the White House, looking out at everybody, sitting on her perch, because it's important to, I want to say mingle, but you want to know your people. And they had no choice because they had kids, right? So they had kids that they had to go to school with, they had to meet teachers, they had to do this when they were in the White House, even when they were before the White House, back when Barack was still a senator, still had to do this. But now we're talking about the president of the free world and the first lady going to a school, showing up at a PTA meeting. You know how mesmerizing that is? You know how much you have to humble yourself to do something like that, right? That's a lot. So you have to do this. You have to keep the mentality that I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make myself seem like I'm better than everybody else. Even though we are who we are, even though we are in the White House, right? I'm still not going to make myself seem like I'm better than everybody else. We have to remain humble. Now, if you haven't already, subscribe to our Facebook page. Go over there, hit the like button. We're live on Facebook right now. You can see all the previous live videos, all the content that's available on the Facebook, because my Instagram is linked to my Facebook. If you're not aware, Facebook owns Instagram. Meta owns Instagram. On your Instagram app, it says Meta. Same company, same people. So whatever's on Instagram goes directly to Facebook. So subscribe to the Professional Nomad page. Subscribe to the Professional Nomad page on Facebook. Gracias. The second thing she talked about was just interacting with people. And it's very important to do that as well because you have to do that. You have to. It's very important to do so, right? You can't remain secluded. I think the only time that they really, really remained secluded was when COVID hit. And by the time it hit, they were already doing it. It was already practicing because of the profession that Barack was in. She was already used to it, right? But some people think that they are built for this type of life. The anonymity part is very important because everyone wants to be popular. Everyone wants to go viral. But mentally, can you handle that? Can you handle a million people trying to hawk you down, trying to chase you down, DMing you, getting your phone number, calling you? Can you handle that? The average person cannot handle that. They would not know what to do if something like that happened. But everyone wants to be popular. But when you go to them with something, they'll be like, no, I really don't, because they really don't want they don't really want the thing that they claim they want. So even if you try to give it to them, they won't accept it. They just want to be Instagram famous or Facebook famous. Want a bunch of likes, want to post a picture, get 200 likes, 300, 400 likes, and think they're popular, especially women. So that's just how it is. Dudes do it too, but they're very feminine. So we shouldn't have that type of attitude, but we do. We got men out here that are like that. But the ability to remain anonymous is important because put yourself in their shoes, right? Once you become people of stature like they are, you can't go to the grocery store. You can't go to the park. You can't go to a concert. You can, but you need 20 service dudes, secret service dudes with you, 20 security guards with you everywhere you go. You can't go to a simple place without security because, like John Lennon, the people that love you, some people who love you so much will kill you. And that's a lesson that he learned. He paid the price for that. One of his fans took him out. So having the ability to remain anonymous, anonymity is very important. You got to be able to remain that way because, like I said, the average person can't handle this stuff. They think they do, and they want to be popular, they want to be famous, but sometimes you really don't want what you think you do. Let's move on.
Things of life, go to a movie theater, or I joked at COVID when people asked when we were all in quarantine, how did it feel? And I was like, well, it was kind of easy for us because we've lived in quarantine for a decade.
Yeah, a decade.
And so you learn to live in this smaller footprint. But that's a tough thing that I don't think people think about when they think of power and fame. And there's some downsides to it.
Yeah. And what do people want the most from you? And because I love the idea of what you're saying of being open. It's such, that mindset is so special.
Yeah.
I guess when you are open and then, like you said, you can get over that hurt. What is the hurt that you usually have to get over, or most commonly that you've had to do?
Maybe hurt is too strong of a word. Again, because we're older, it's just the loss of a piece of yourself.
Right.
People always ask me, I was in Chicago the other day, and every time I go back to Chicago, people are like, do you miss Chicago? I miss the Chicago that we knew before we were here.
Wow, it's powerful. Yeah.
That Chicago is no longer available to us.
To you, yes, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the way we loved it in that way. And that's a loss. Is it a hurt? Is it personal? No, it's just the way life is, but it's still a loss. You know, my husband loves New York. And it was interesting. He thought for a second, because he's been more isolated than me.
Mm-hmm.
He thought for a minute, when we leave the White House, we'll live in New York. And I was like, dude, you can't live in New York. And it's just,
I don't know what Barack was thinking about moving to New York. Like that's going to be safe for him and his family. Oh my God. Can you imagine after becoming the president and you stayed in the White House for the past 8 years, all of a sudden you moved to New York? You gonna move to upstate New York? You gonna move to Buffalo? You're gonna become a Bills fan, right? You're gonna try to go to the grocery store and get bombarded. Not gonna happen. I don't know what Barack was thinking about. It's cute, but hey, you know, I don't think he put a lot of thought behind that one, just to be honest. Once again, make sure you subscribe to the Professional Nomad Podcast on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the Professional Nomad on Instagram, on Facebook. Please make sure you hit that like button. Please make sure you hit that like button. It gives us the ability to reach a bigger audience, and we want to try to get this content in front of as many people as possible. Look at them grades showing. It's all right. Wisdom coming through. Let's get back to this video.
he cannot access the wonderful city of New York in the way that he remembered when he was in his 20s. Because guess what we can't do? We can't walk down the street. We can't get on the subway. We can't necessarily walk through Central Park without a big plan. You know, the things that make New York, New York, we can't access it. That's the part the people part, the connection to people part. I never get exhausted by that because I'm open.
Yes.
Right. So it's not
It's
the
a great
people,
distinction.
right? It's just the way you want to live your life, especially when you're open, right? You want to be open. You want to be in the midst of people. And we've lost that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what's beautiful about this book, The Light We Carry, and Becoming, is it shows us just how many trials, challenges, setbacks that you've had to overcome and that you've gone through in your life so elegantly, gracefully, tactfully, with so much determination and drive. And I'm intrigued that after having overcome so much, like you said, climbing Mount Everest, using that as our analogy, what is the thing that keeps you up at night now? Or what is your biggest fear now after having overcome so many?
It has less to do with me personally and more to do with the world that we're in. There's such a thing as knowing too much. And when you've been married to the president of the United States who knows everything about everything in the world, sometimes you just want to turn it off.
Too much.
Right. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to know what was in that folder that you just got that made you quiet. You know, I don't want to know why the security just pulled you over. I mean, it could be any range of things that comes across the desk of the leader of the free world, right? So I know a lot about what's going on, and what keeps me up are the things that I know. The war in the region, in too many regions. What is AI going to do for us? The environment, are we moving at all fast enough? What are we doing about education? Are people going to vote? And why aren't people voting? Are we too stuck to our phones? I mean, those are the things.
Oh, Now, if I were to say, ladies, you need to mind your business sometimes, would I be wrong? After hearing what she just said, would it make sense? Because once again, when you hear something, you can't unhear it. And sometimes it's just best for you to stay out of it. Too many women want to be involved in a man's business. And when you hear something, you can't unhear it. Sometimes it's best not to know what's going on. I done seen a lot of people end up in the courtroom because you were ear hustling. And then you sat there and you ran your mouth about something you shouldn't even have been talking about. Because if you wouldn't have been being nosy in the first place, it would have never came through your eardrums and went into your memory banks. Sometimes you can just know too much. Sometimes it's best to have plausible deniability. Sometimes you don't need to know what you don't know. And that's the best way I can put it. But in these days and ages, a lot of people, especially women, want to be all in your phone, all in your business. And you don't always need to do that with your man. Let him handle his business. I'm pretty sure he's going to talk to you about it anyway if he's a good man, right? Because you're his helpmate, right? You're his helpmate. You bring him peace. So there's no better person for him to bounce ideas off of than you. So make sure you subscribe to our Twitter page. Like I said, we're on every platform. Make sure you subscribe to the Twitter page. Got a lot of stuff going on Twitter. We're going to start going live soon on Twitter. I'm thinking about switching some things around. I'm getting a lot of spam content on Twitch. So, yeah. But sometimes it's good to just mind your business and stay out of what ain't got nothing to do with you. Because, like I said, once you hear something, you can't unhear it. And you don't want to be that person. Let's get back to it. Let's talk about it afterwards.
That keep me up because you don't have control over them. Mm-hmm. And you wonder, where are we in this? Where are our hearts? What's going to happen in this next election? I am terrified about what could possibly happen because our leaders matter. Who we select, who speaks for us, who holds that bully pulpit. It affects us in ways that sometimes I think people take for granted. The fact that people think that government, does it really even do anything? And I'm like, oh my God, does government do everything for us? And we cannot take this democracy for granted. And sometimes I worry that we do. Those are the things that keep me up.
What habits have you developed? Because I think people may not have access to the news you do, but I think people can definitely relate
yes,
to what you're saying of
absolutely.
Like, Jay, I'm just seeing all the news on my phone. I'm connected to the TV. I'm hearing things from friends and family. Like, I think a lot of people can relate to you saying, I feel like I know too much.
Yeah.
What are some of the habits and practices or rules that you've developed that have really become your saving grace? Because like you said, to you, it's not just a news update, it's a folder, it's the person calling, it's a private meeting, whatever it may be. You're, in one sense, it's even more extreme because you're so privy to the actual reality as opposed to a news channel, which is part of reality.
Yeah. One of the most important practices is deliberately turning that off for a moment or more than a moment. And I encourage that. I think our phones are sort of the regular man's equivalent to what I just described. We're too connected all the time. We're reading too much. We're taking too much in. We are constantly being fed by images, and that's become the norm. And we've been sort of marketed that that's cool. That's what we should want. But our brains are not. We are not that sophisticated a species.
Yeah.
We have not evolved enough to be able to take in that much information on a constant basis. And our kids certainly are not prepared to handle it. I think that plays a huge role in the higher rates of depression and suicide among young people. They've got to let their brains rest from the noise. Even though, we're all trying to fix everything, everyone needs a break from it, right? So I'm very deliberate about knowing that I can't take all that in, and we're getting it in such a sort of misinterpreted way, right? We've got, confirmation bias. We're reading only what we already believe. And I know I have to be very deliberate about, understanding that a lot of the information I'm getting isn't even complete. I do filter, and then I develop habits that shut my brain off to thinking.
We're going to come back to this in a second. Now, you can be too connected. Sometimes it's best to go analog. Yeah, I got devices. I got my computer right here, iPad right here, my phone's right here. I have everything. My devices can control everything in my house. Everything. I have a smart duplex. Some people say they got a smart home. I live in a duplex. I got a smart duplex, right? Look, the world has changed so much to where people are always trying to stay connected. But sometimes you have to unconnect yourself from everything. It's just best to do that. Why is it best to do that? Because, one, our mind, the mind works like a computer, true enough, but it cannot handle what you think it can handle. It can only take in so much. This is what gives people anxiety, like she just said. This is what gives people anxiety, depression, right? How many kids right now that stay on Instagram all the time, that always are trying to keep up with the Instagram children on there, right? Women always want BBLs. They want to get boob jobs, right? Because they're trying to keep up with a photo of somebody that's been photoshopped to look good. I don't look as good as she is, so I need to go do something to look good like she does. And you end up hurting yourself. Men do it too. Men get Botox in their cheeks and their face, the commercials about it. My dermatologist does it. He does Botox injections and all this stuff. I'm like, man, ain't no way I would ever do that. It's a booming business. Men do it too, so men are not innocent either, right? But at the same time, you are trying to keep up with imaginary things. You're trying to keep up with who's doing what on Facebook, who's doing what on Instagram, and sometimes you need to shut down, get out the house. It is 11 degrees here in Nashville. It is snow everywhere, ice all on the ground, and I have been out of the house more than I have in the past 2 months. Why? Because I am not going to be stuck in the house watching TV all the time. I'm going to get out of the house. I work from home. I can't sit in the house all day long. I just can't do it. Why? Because I know that if I'm sitting here in front of this screen, in front of this tablet, simply on my phone all day long, I'm going to be lost in it, because I used to be like it. Always on Instagram, always on Facebook, posting funny memes, posting a bunch of stuff just to see if I can make people laugh. I'm a pretty funny guy. I can't lie about that. But you know how many hours I've wasted on there? I ain't make no money off none of it. Now people are being monetized on Instagram and Facebook. But the average person, they're just on there for hours a day. The average child, they're on their phone on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok all day long while they're in school, on the bus, while they're at home. Think of how much time we spend on a device. And think about how people react when you take that device away from them. They lose their connection to the matrix. Everyone wants to be popular. Everybody wants to be popular. But like I said previously, mentally, can you handle that? But I digress. Let's go back to it.
Right. I wrote in the light about knitting, which is a habit that I developed, a hobby that I developed over quarantine.
And that's because it makes you so present and
so
engaged.
It shuts your brain down and allows your hands, the motion, to take over. And in that way, I found that it is meditative, right? And that's what meditation is. It's quieting your noisy mind. And some of us can't connect to meditation, but I think we need it. I think biologically, we need to shut that part of ourselves down to get a rest from it. And I find that knitting does it, exercise does it, learning something physical shuts my mind down. I mean, I've taken up tennis, and there's nothing that shuts my mind down than running after a green ball and trying to figure out, move your feet, hit the ball, follow through. It's like, that shuts my mind down. For the hour or 90 minutes that I'm doing that thing, I'm not worrying. I'm breathing, I'm outside, I'm letting the sun hit my face. Those habits and routines of creating something, right? And we do that less and less now. It's like everything is all in the mind. It's all technology. But I think we need something where the thing I love about knitting is that at the end of it, I've made something. It's just satisfying in a very different way from problem solving or analysis. Right? Building, creating, painting, drawing, fixing, putting something real into the world that came from your own hands. Something small, that's why I talk about the power of small in the light we carry, because a lot of times our brains are trying to do the big fix. And that's when we feel hopeless and we're tired, because most of us don't have the power to fix anything at a big scale. But we can focus on the small things that we have control over. Making a sweater for your daughter, helping mentor a child in your neighborhood, loving the children you bring into the world and making sure they have everything they need. That's where change happens, right? And when I do those kinds of activities, I meditate into that power, right? That small power, that there is satisfaction from hitting a stupid ball over a net, and getting a good swing out of it. It's like, it makes the day better because I serve.
One of my managers has a saying, and he used to say this all the time, and listening to her reminded me of this saying, right? Control what you can control. Make sure you do your part. All right. If you're supposed to send an email, send that email. Make sure you do that. If you're supposed to make sure that an assignment gets completed, make sure you do that. That's something that you can control with your ability. Now, if someone on the other end doesn't do it, that's not on you. That's on them. Control what you can control. Simply put, my team, when I first started in my position, my team consisted of only 35 people. Now, every year around August, we take on more people, and my team ends up growing to around 45 to 50 people. It's very time consuming. I get very busy. I moderate a lot of things. I moderate a couple channels, right? But when I get bogged down at work, I can't do other things, right? But I have to make sure that I do my day job because I can only control what I can control, and that's part of that's one of the things that I got to make sure that I have under control. Now, if I can find time to do everything else on the side, do my own YouTube live streams, help my associates moderate their channels, make sure people not talking crazy in their chats, I can do that too, and I'll do that. But if I don't have the time to do it, I can't do it. It's something that's out of my control because I got this big thing over here that I manage every single day from probably 6 a.m., 5:30 to 6 a.m. to 3, 4, 5 p.m. every day. And it's purely mental. It's a mentally exhausting job. When I shut that laptop down, I almost want to just lay on the couch and fall asleep. But I figure out a way to keep going. You got to figure out a way to keep going. And like she's saying, you have to figure out a way to unplug, make your mind stop. Because if your mind just keeps running and running, right? Then when it's time for you to lay down at night, you can't go to sleep. It happens to me because I'm always trying to strategize how to make my team better. My team is performing well. How can I help this person on my team become a better employee, make them better at what they do? I'm always thinking of ways to do that. And even though I don't do what they do, I know management. I understand how to produce. So I'm always sitting here trying to think of how I can make things better for my team. And I don't do it for individual accolades. I just do it because that's the type of person that I am. Simply put. But at the end of the day, when I start working, sometimes I have to just stop. And I had to do nothing. I had to get up and I get out of the house, like I said not too long ago, a minute ago. I get up, I get out of the house, go to Walmart, walk around, stick my phone in my pocket, see what I need, go grocery shopping. I do all this by myself. Go to the barbershop, interact with people in the barbershop. Might even fall asleep in the barbershop. It's a weekly thing, right? I just do it because I have to unplug. Because if you don't unplug, you don't ever unplug, then you will never, ever be able to shut this off. And it's best to shut it off. But let me continue with the video. And we're going to end this stream in a minute because we've been on here for almost an hour and a half. But let's go.
The ball right, or
Yes.
I finished a scarf.
Yeah. I love it. No, you're so right. And I'm so glad you're using the word shutting down.
Yeah.
And this switch to analog. I remember at one point, and I think everyone can relate to this, you wake up to your phone.
Mhm.
I'd be brushing my teeth, I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm eating breakfast, I'm on my
Yeah.
phone. You know, just your phone is now tethered to your hand in every activity that you're doing throughout the day. And so your brain is never shutting down. And the interesting thing is we all know our phones need a reset. They need an update. They need
Yeah.
a software refresh or whatever it may be. And I think I saw somewhere that the human brain today has to process like 74 gigabytes worth of information a day.
Yeah.
A day. And I was thinking, I remember when your phone doesn't, it's a lot.
And when you think about it, this is a brand new technology,
Yes.
right? When we got into the White House, we had Blackberries, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Social media wasn't a thing,
Mhm.
right? All of that came into being in the 8 years that we were in the White House, and it's just gone off like a rocket ship. We don't evolve that quickly. You know, humans, it takes generations for us to evolve. We haven't adapted to this new media. We have not biologically adapted. And so no wonder we're stressed.
Yes.
No wonder we're full of anxiety. No wonder our kids are struggling, you know, because we have a new technology and we've taken it in hook, line, and sinker. We're not even questioning how much, you know, the more the merrier, right? I think we need to be very mindful about this new gadget.
Yes.
And we have to be mindful for our kids because they have no filter, right? They'll just be thumbing through this stuff, you know, their minds never sleeping. And as parents of my generation, we know so little about it. We don't even know how to monitor it. It's like cigarettes, right? Is it good for us? I mean, at one point, everybody smoked until we realized, oops, this isn't really good for us, right? I think we have to be cautious about this new thing that we're just lapping up.
Yeah, I read an article a few years ago. Exactly. It was saying that today we absorb in one day, in 24 hours, the same amount of tragedy we would in our entire lifetime 25 years ago. Today we absorb what we would in our entire lifetime in one day. And it felt real.
And that's why people feel more panicked. I mean, Barack, my husband, he's a fact-based guy. He's a science guy. Sometimes it's not popular these days, right? Having a president that believes in facts and science and all that stuff, but he's one of those people. And he always says, you know, statistically speaking, especially when young people bemoan where we are today, he says, you know, if you look at history and statistics, if you were to pick any time in human history to be born, you'd want to be born now. Crime, war, those rates are at the lowest, but nobody feels that. People feel more unsafe. Why? Because they're getting fed images of every crime that happens anywhere, everywhere, right? And when we were growing up, you just heard your local news, you know? It's just like, oh, there was a fire or that kid, you know, and, you know, now we're getting everything, not just from our community, but all over the world. Stuff that's always been happening. We just didn't know about it.
Yes.
Now we know too much.
Yes.
And we're interpreting that to mean things are horrible. We went through world wars and depressions and famine. This isn't new. It's just we know everything. You know, it's one way to look at it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think you're right, because there's the incomplete information. I like the word incomplete that you said. I appreciate that kind of subtle point. Incomplete information. Then you have opinions. Then you have feelings and emotions. And so there's so much more information on every level. You have the physical information, the emotional information, the mental information, of course, the physical experience of it. And it can be too much. One of the it's so interesting you use the analogy of climbing Mount Everest, because I went to see a comedy show recently, and I'm trying to remember the comedian's name, so I'll have to find it afterwards and put him in there. But he literally was describing, he was saying relationships are like climbing Mount Everest. And so what he said was, he goes, you start at base camp, and he goes, you and your partner are ready, you're ready to go, you're being guided. And then at one point you're like, oh, we're cold, but it's okay, we'll keep each other warm, we'll be fine. And then he goes, you get to the first stop, and you go, oh yeah, like, did you pack the gloves? Did you pack the gloves? And then your partner goes, oh no, I forgot the gloves. And you're like, oh, it's okay. We'll just keep our hands warm. Then you get a bit higher, and then they were like, now it's got to a point where it's really cold, and you go, why did you forget those gloves? Like, you know, it's like the press, like, come on, like, why do you forget those gloves? Then you get to the next stop, and your partner says to you, like, you packed the sandwiches, right? And then you look at the sandwiches like, I don't know where the sandwiches are. Anyway, and so you talk about this so much in your work, in your book. Like, relationships are challenging. They're difficult. I think you've been together now for over 30 years, 31 years. Congratulations.
October.
Yeah, congratulations. This is a wonderful thing, right? Very wonderful thing. Perfect example of how people can make it last. Now, we don't want to use them as the example of relationship goals or whatever, but it's a perfect example of the test of time. the not so perfect relationship, because nowadays somebody can get in one spout and the whole relationship is over. They're divorced. Average marriage lasts 5 years. They've been married for 30, over 30. So congrats to them. In closing, what I want to say is plausible deniability is good sometimes, because if you don't know, you don't know. Sometimes it's best not to know. Chisme isn't good for you. Being nosy isn't good for you all the time. Sometimes you might hear something you might not need to know about. All right? Unplug. Go do something physical. Go to the gym, work out. Get that stress up off of you. Okay? Remain humble. Remember the people who support you. Build a network of people who will make sure that you are being your best self. You can't do it alone. I don't care what nobody says. You weren't meant to do it alone. So don't try to do it alone. It don't work like that. You were not put here to be alone. So don't try to do things alone. All right? There was one more thing. Make sure you keep a network of people around you all the time that keep you humble. And with that, we're going to end the live stream. Please make sure you hit the like button. Please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Hit the notification button to be alerted when we go live. We're going to try to keep this on a regular schedule. If you're watching this on the replay, please leave a comment. Whether you like this or you don't like this, let me know. I read all comments. You won't hurt my feelings, trust me. With that, Stefano out. Thank you for tuning in.